Phil, stay with us here for a moment. I want to bring in the Energy and Environmental Legal Institute senior fellow, policy fellow, Steve Milloy. So, Steve, we're seeing Russia selling oil as much or as more than they had before the invasion. So the Russian president simply feels not much economic pressure. So why do you think the sanctions failed?
Well, I think it's important to realize that, Vladimir Putin is a lot smarter and more serious than Joe Biden, any Western leader, and he has outthought them all. The sanctions that we've imposed on Russia have hurt the West more than they've hurt Putin. Putin is producing, as you said, as much oil as he was, almost as much as he was before. He could sell it to India and China at whatever price they want to buy. The only way out of this is for Joe Biden to unleash the U.S. oil and gas industry. We need to crush the price of oil like we did at the beginning of COVID, where Russia and Saudi Arabia had to go into a price war. We need to crush that price. We need to be crushing Russia's economy. That is the only way out of this. These price caps, they're not serious measures.
So do you feel, Steve, that the Russian president then felt confident in this invasion because the relationship he has with China and the energy policies of the United States currently?
Sure. Look, for the last 20 years, Europe has been making itself dependent on Putin's oil, gas, and coal. And he knew that he had them over the barrel. And he knew that because he had Europe over the barrel, he basically had the rest of the world. When Joe Biden refused to, pump U.S. oil and basically, discourage U.S. oil production, Putin having China as a backup, this was the time to do whatever he wants. And, he may be struggling in Ukraine, but we're not hurting him financially. We're only hurting ourselves.
Right. So, Phil, I wanted to ask you one more question. So look out next year. There's been no substantial investments on infrastructure and fossil fuels in the U.S. How fragile is this edge that we're on with energy?
It's about as fragile as thin ice can be, right? Because the bottom line is, look at where we're at right now, Ed. If you look at the production of oil, the supplies of oil, we've got diesel fuels at a 70-year low. If it weren't for releasing oil from the reserve, crude oil supplies would probably be at the lowest level since the 1950s. And we're not seeing anybody come online, right? There's no production online. And the room for error in the global oil system right now is thinner than it's ever been. Spare production capacities may only be 2 million barrels a day. So if you lose 2 million barrels a day of oil from Russia or anywhere else in the world, you're going to see those prices spike.
So, Steve, I want to ask you, how quickly then do you think the U.S. could turn this around?
Well, it's going to take time to, bring the U.S. oil industry really back online and really unleash them. Joe Biden has been doing everything he can to discourage U.S. oil production. He's still trying to stop leasing on federal lands. He's still trying to make it more difficult for the oil industry to produce oil, to transport it through, pipelines, to store it. He's doing everything he can to make it more difficult. So right now, we are nowhere headed in the right direction.
Yeah, Steve. Phil, Steve, this debate will continue. Appreciate both of you for your time and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Yep. So President Biden now kicking the can down.